We will not go back to reckless borrowing. We will not go back to subsidies that benefit brokers, cartels, and people who are politically correct.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the backstory. If you are new here, kindly hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down below so that you can be notified when we post a new video. Now, ladies and gentlemen, fuel prices are set to rise in Kenya if the Kenya Kwanza administration takes heed of the advice of the IMF, International Monetary Fund, on the fact that they should do away with fuel subsidy, which was reintroduced by President Ruto's regime. Now, apparently, IMF has hit out at President Ruto's regime over the reintroduction of fuel subsidy scheme on the grounds that President Ruto's regime doesn't have money to pay the oil marketers. Now, apparently, some of the marketers have not been paid some of the money that they used to supply oil last year and the year before. So, according to the arrangement that President Ruto's regime had with IMF, they were to do away with the fuel subsidy so that they could access some loan facility from IMF. But now it turns out that William Ruto's regime has reintroduced it. But if you remember very well, this fuel subsidy issue was started during President Uhuru's regime during the COVID-19 period. But when Ruto came into power, he said categorically that he was not going to continue with the issue of fuel subsidy.
Jambo la pili, napenda kuwauliza nyote kwamba sisi tumekula kiapo na tumekula kiapo kusema ukweli na kuendesha mambo ya taifa letu la Kenya kulingana na katiba na sheria ya taifa letu. Na kwa sababu hiyo, kuna maamuzi ambayo ni lazima tuyafanye. Maamuzi ambayo kwa kawaida pengine sio maamuzi ambayo ni popular katika ile ambayo inasemekana. And I want to say this very categorically, that as president and as leaders, we are going to make the decisions that are necessary for us to make progress as a nation. When I came into office, I had to make difficult decisions about our economy because we were not doing well, and we need to change the foundation of our economy. I found that there were decisions that were made for political expediency for that time because we had an election. And the decisions about some subsidies in unga, subsidies in fuel, subsidies in electricity, that were not informed by the science of our economy, but were informed by the expedience, they would cost our economy big time. We would be spending close to 25 billion shillings every month to subsidize some of the projects or programs that were set out. We did away with those subsidies in August, and I am happy that we have saved our economy huge amounts of money, and we are now well on the way to making sure that we invest in the areas that will drive our economy in a sustainable manner.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, fuel subsidy was introduced during the Corona period that was under former President Uhuru's regime. The main reason as to why fuel subsidy was introduced was the fact that during the Corona period, Kenyans complained because of the high prices of commodities that was affecting their purchasing power. Kenyans could not afford basic commodities. And as a result, President Uhuru, together with his team, came up with some interventions so as to cushion Kenyans from the rising prices of commodities and the effects of COVID-19. One of them was the reduction of taxes on basic commodities and reduction of was VAT and pay. Then secondly was the introduction of fuel subsidy so as to cushion Kenyans. This worked for some time up to a point when now politicians started politicizing the issue of fuel subsidy because they accused the regime then of favoring some companies who are benefiting out of this. So this raised a lot of storm in Kenya. Even though the fuel subsidy was not sustainable to Kenya as a country, because there was using close to 20 billion every month for that fuel subsidy. But in a way, it was helping Kenyans, whereby Kenyans' purchasing power increased and they were able to afford basic commodities. So come 2022, when President Ruto came into power, during his swearing in ceremony, or even after that, President Ruto himself vowed that his administration would not subsidize palm prices. And apparently during that time, this was the time they were negotiating with IMF and World Bank so as to access loan facilities. And one of the conditionalities then was that they were to do away with that fuel subsidy so as to access funds from IMF and World Bank, which they did. And when it was presented to Kenyans, it would look like a game changer until the issue of introduction of 16% on fuel products was also introduced. So the introduction of fuel subsidy, the doing away with fuel subsidy and the introduction of 16% fuel levy raised prices of fuel products. And this has affected Kenyans so much. It has affected Kenyans in a way that Kenyans have been able to cut down on their consumption of fuel products. Like last week, the Kenya Revenue Authority released a report whereby they said that they were going to miss their targets by close to 300 billion. And some of the contributing factors to this was the reduction in consumption of fuel by Kenyans, more so paraffin and petrol, whereby Kenyans have devised ways of survival. Those who had vehicles have decided to do public transport so as to cut on costs. Those who are doing paraffin have cut, I don't know what they're using charcoal or something. So the net effect of these levies that were introduced have hit on Kenyans. Because fuel is like a key factor in production. Whenever fuel products or whenever the prices of fuel go high, other commodities that are manufactured using fuel as well are affected, because when the costs go high, that extra cost is passed on to the consumers. So as a result, basic commodity prices have also gone high. And this has affected Kenyans in a way that Kenyans have to readjust their budgets. So when we go back to that, IMF has now come out to hit at President Ruto's regime because they have now reintroduced the fuel subsidy after Kenyans came out to criticize them. But there's one thing that is affecting there are two things that are affecting this fuel issue. One is the fact that there was the reintroduction of 16% levy on fuel. William Ruto's regime was told and advised by Kenyans not to introduce the 16% levy, because in their whole thinking they were going to collect more money out of it, and the projection was that they were going to collect an extra 4 billion shillings a month. But looking at KRA's projections, you feel like it is kind of counterproductive. Instead of collecting more, they are collecting less. Then the second factor that has also hit this fuel sector is the G2G deal. The G2G deal, or government to government deal, was a very good idea as was presented by William Ruto's regime. And Kenyans thought that they were going to get cheaper fuel from the producers from the Middle East. But it has turned out to be a project that is used for money minting. Because currently, if you look at the international fuel prices, they are way low. So Kenyans should have benefited more. Kenyans by now should have been consuming fuel at very, very low prices, going by the international fuel prices. But apparently you find that our fuel prices are higher than any other country in the region. Why? So it doesn't make sense to Kenyans. That is why this deal is very complex. That is why they had to reintroduce that fuel subsidy so as to kind of cover some of the negative impacts of this G2G deal. So if the IMF puts a lot of pressure, if the IMF will be able to put pressure on William Ruto's government to do away with the subsidy, then it means the prices of fuel or the price of fuel or prices of fuel products are going to go higher by over 10 shillings or even 15 shillings. And if that happens, then it means the cost of products, which is already high, will almost double or triple. So Kenyans are looking at a very, very bleak future here, unless the government comes up with serious interventions towards stabilizing the price of fuel and fuel products. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to highlight this and let you know that by the next review by April, fuel prices might go high. If it's not the next review, but the one after this one. Because now, IMF that made like an agreement on some of the structural adjustments that Ruto's government needed to do, was supposed to give them some loan under some strict kind of structural adjustment. And one of them was doing away with the subsidy. But Ruto's government, through the back door, reintroduced them. So if they put pressure, then it means we are in for a very, very, very long time here, ladies and gentlemen. So for now, I just wanted to highlight this and tell you that, guys, this is going to be real. Get prepared. So now, ladies and gentlemen, that is it from us today. Until next time, bye-bye.